Okay. Hi, everybody. I'm sorry that I couldn't be there today. I feel as though I've been exiled since I'm doing this by video. But anyway, here goes. I will start with the beginning. So family history. The first one asks for me to describe my family culture and ethnic identity. And I have that I am a daughter of an American Revolution and a Trail of Tears. My family line obviously dates back to being a daughter of the American Revolution, and my mom's side of the family comes from being a full line of full-blooded Cherokee Indians. And then that also splits into being super Southern and then super Yanks. My family was always split right down the middle in both cultural and ethic reasonings all the time. There was always kind of one end of the spectrum, from rules to ethics to every way that they acted. They were always split right down the middle all the time. It was a little bit of a struggle growing up about being pulled in both directions, but it balances out in the end. Significant family beliefs: have unconditional love, have determination, always have respect for everyone, everything, stay positive, believe in friendships. Friendships run as deep as family. They go hand in hand. Holidays that helped establish norms or family beliefs. Christmas, birthdays, Thanksgiving, but also vacations, going on road trips and going on vacations. That was one particular thing that definitely always built the family bond, was vacations. And I still continue that with my daughters today. We take road trips every other summer, and I believe that kind of is the thread that holds us together. We get to experience being in that close proximity together, where you can't sort of escape, whether you like it or not. And that always sort of builds relationships that you didn't know were possible. Family values and beliefs about education. Because of that split that always happened in my family about sort of Yanks, Southern roots, and, you know, one side and the other, there was kind of that split in the same about education, but at the same time, my family always believed that you are always learning in and out of school, and that education will lead you to success. So even if you're in the building, and no matter what you're doing there, being in that building, the people that you talk to and the things that you are doing in the building will always lead you to success. So if you're working hard and you're putting forth the effort, at the end of the day, you will end up successful, but it's kind of in your hands. That's it. The second column asks for cultural other. It asks me to identify ethnic cultural group from which I'm most familiar. I wrote that my identity is influenced by all people, adults and children, that I encounter. They make me the whole person that I am today, and that I have never met a stranger. When I was a little kid, we traveled all the time. My mom comes from a Army background. She's an Army brat. So we spent a lot of time on the road traveling all the time. And I would travel with my aunt and my father. We lived in Mexico for the first 5 years of my life. I spent time in Switzerland and all throughout Europe. So I was always meeting people, and my mom always made sure that I always said hello to everybody, but not only hello, but that I struck up a conversation with everybody that I met. And so she made sure that I knew how to never meet a stranger, which meant that you spoke to everyone all the time and engaged in a true conversation. Not only that, but made a connection with everyone that you met. So it was really important that I held on to that belief, and still to that day, I feel that way, that I identify with every person that I meet, regardless of how different we are. I make sure that I work really hard to connect with people. And that's not to say that I don't make connections, because there are definitely people that we just don't jive, but I do work really hard to make sure that I make connections with people as often as possible. Ethnic or cultural group that I am the least familiar with, when I was writing this, I wrote, it's the group of people that I haven't met yet. And it's hard because there are a huge group of people and subcultures that I don't know anything about, and I can't say it's this country or these people or this person or it's Africa or it's Ethiopia or it's Asia or it's Asians. There are all sorts of people that I don't know anything about. There are people living in my neighborhood I know nothing about. So it's hard for me to pinpoint that it's this kind of person because, like I said, there are people who live next door to me that I know nothing about. And sometimes it's hard to say that it's a particular culture when it's really just a group of people. So that's where I think that distinction needs to be made. It's about people, not necessarily about cultures. Cross-cultural experiences that created a change in beliefs. Like I said, I traveled all the time when I was a kid, and my mom took me through the streets of many countries, and I saw so many things as a little kid. So being exposed to those kind of things, richer or poorer, I saw lots of things. So for my eyes to be opened all the time when I was a little, you know, regardless of what we had and what we didn't have, I saw a lot. And then, you know, when my father died, we experienced things that we had never before. So my life was always kind of this revolving door of not only, you know, just life changes. So, you know, I don't know if it's cultural or if it's just changing of, you know, living in one neighborhood to another, but that definitely changes your beliefs alone. But moving, you know, living in Mexico is a big cross-cultural belief or cross-cultural experience. But I learned it from a very young age. So maybe coming back into the States after dealing with that was a change in experience. And then going back and forth, and then as I grew older, you know, going to Europe and traveling through there and going through the different parts of town. I mean, my mom always exposed me to so much that I can't say that, I'm not saying that there isn't anything that I don't know anything about, because that would be a lie, but I was always exposed to so much all the time that I was ready to embrace, I guess is what I'm going to say. That I'm always ready to embrace and sort of take things on. I don't know that that really answers that question at all. Acknowledgement of racial, cultural, ethnic stereotypes or negative beliefs. I think, as with everyone else, this is such a odd question to answer. But I wrote that I acknowledge that people have stereotypes. I acknowledge that negativity exists, and I acknowledge that if I didn't acknowledge these things, I would be a totally ignorant person. I acknowledge that those things all exist. Cultural self-personal, student-preferred learning style. I prefer to be an interactive and hands-on with my education. I like to explore, discuss, create, restart, and build ideas with cooperative teams and alone. I am open to all possibilities that end with me knowing more than I did before. Educational background and the social, political, economic dynamics of the school context. Always strict, sometimes parochial, sometimes private, always unaffordable, and always busting my chops. My parents, my father's side of the family really believed in private school, and so I always went there. And then when my dad died, and my grandparents died, and my aunt died, my mom worked really hard to make sure that I continued that private education. And I did, and it was awesome, and it was great, but it was really hard to maintain for my mother, and so I learned that that's, you know, I don't know, I just learned that that's what you did. You went to that school and you worked really hard, and I got a lot out of it, more than I ever thought I would. But, you know, that just shows, you know, that belief in education from my father's point of view, but my mom just believed in me going there and being the best that I could be, so I saw both sides of the story there. My strengths, I'm good at making connections. I have a collaborative nature. I think I'm creative. I think I'm intuitive. Sometimes I think I'm funny. That's all I got. Cultural, self-personal. Activities that generate enjoyment or relaxation camping, cooking, traveling, entertaining, crafting, teaching, skiing, created, writing, dancing, anything that allows me to move or, I don't know, just kind of get out there and be fun and creative. I love all of those things. Cultural, self-professional. Rationale for becoming a teacher. It was kind of this amazing insight into little brains. I went to school to be a psychologist, and I loved psychology so much. I was so riveted by it every second. And of course, like many, when I had kids, I realized I had to get a job that made sense for the timing. And then when I got into the classroom, I realized I could actually be a psychologist and a teacher at the same time. They went hand in hand. Model teachers. I think, model teachers have the ability to balance academic rigor and student social emotional situations with care and purpose. When I was in high school, my father died, and I had this amazing science teacher named Mr. Webb who had this incredible intuition and saw that I was struggling emotionally, and he would write poetry with me, which was kind of my only outlet to survive that incident. And so he would allow me to express it, but he was really hard on me academically because he knew that I loved science so much. So he pushed me really hard, and I fell in love with science. I mean, it became my whole life, and he implemented an environmental science class at my high school because it was something I was really passionate about, not just me, but other students. And he was one of the only male teachers at my all-girls school, and so he knew that I, needed a male role model, and he became it, and he just really pushed me emotionally and academically, and I still, to this day, just am amazed by his ability to be so intuitive, and I think that's why I often want to step into that role as an educator by myself, because he inspired me so much. Yeah, just an amazing person. My teaching philosophy is that that students don't care what you know until they know that you care. I have always held true to that statement. I totally believe that if they don't know that you're there listening to them, and if you don't know what their favorite sport is, or what their favorite color is, or that they have siblings, or that their parents are divorced, or where they live, or if they live in a home, or if you don't know any of that, then they don't want to learn anything from you. And that's truly my philosophy, because if you're not in touch with those things, then you're not in touch with them as students. Thanks for letting me do this. Have a great night.